Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today as we're discussing experimentation and optimization. When done right, even the losing experience is a win. I'm Andy, and I'm a digital strategist on the advisory team at Avanade. I've spent over a decade in digital marketing, driving customer engagement on and offline. For over 3 years, I've enjoyed partnering with marketing technology teams to maximize the value of the Sitecore platform and build better relationships with their customers.
And hi, I'm Leah Feldman. I'm a MarTech strategist with Avanade in the business and tech integration community. I've been focusing on Sitecore implementations for the last 3 years now. From really engineering features to marketing optimizations, I've engaged with all areas of the Sitecore platform.
Just like most of you, I've been spending a lot of time at home lately. I've been experiencing the learnings of my son, who's just turning 5 in a few weeks. We talk a lot about oopsies. I'm sure we can all remember oopsies in some form or another from when we were all growing up. If you're pouring milk and get distracted and the milk ends up on the counter, if you come out of the rain and don't take your boots off, you track mud throughout the house. When we're young and we grow up, try new things and sometimes we fail, but we get picked back up and we learn along the way. Maybe next time we try things a little differently and get a different result or a different reaction from our parents. Oopsies happen, and that's a part of life. But for kids, these small missteps are a way for them to experiment and learn. Of course, with a little direction from their parents. Then as adults, we have refined how we handle these accidents and incorporate fixes as we go. We understand our mistakes, and we have a wealth of experience to better control our actions going forward. We apply those learnings widely across all our personal experiences in a calculated and deliberate manner. Because if we don't learn from our mistakes, we are doomed to repeat them. It's the same way with experimenting and optimizing. You gather information about what's working and what's not working with your customers. And then you iterate, you make changes based on what the data is telling you. This is what testing and optimization is all about. Start with an idea, with some data around what you know your customers need and want. And then you form a hypothesis on what you think could be a solution to their problems. You plan, and then you test it out. You hope for success, but you ultimately learn from it all. If you're not yet sold, here's a few more reasons. Testing helps mitigate risk when making changes to the site. Through testing new content, the data will tell you what's working and what is not. Improve overall site content and visitor experiences and increase customer engagement. And through these optimizations, your site will ultimately perform better. Last, with the experience optimization capabilities built right into Sitecore, it makes it easy for you to learn what drives your customers and what makes your website the best experience it could possibly be. Today, we're going to talk you through how to get started and take advantage of these capabilities. But first, you really need to understand, what your customers want and value. We're embracing these oopsies and adopting this testing and learning approach. You'll really need to understand these 3 things. What's important to your business, what's important to your customers, and how can you really measure the effectiveness of both of these? Lee is going to walk you through on building the foundation of this framework.
So let's start with what's important to our business. This sets the foundation for every experiment. In order to create really impactful business-driving experiments, we need to align to our top-level business goals. Taking the time to really document the business goals that will define success for your company is essential to proving out value in your experiments. Without doing so, we are really running the risk of wasting time and resources on experiments that don't return value. Let's start with what's important to our business. This sets the foundation for every experiment. In order to create impactful business-driving experiments, we need to align to our top-level business goals. Taking the time to document the business goals that will define success for your company and prove value is essential to beginning any experiment. Without doing so, we are running the risk of wasting time and resources on experiments that don't return value. And at the center of every business model is the customer. But how do we know what's important to our customers? Through analyzing data of our site's performance and our customers' actions, we can uncover the right areas to optimize. And by doing so, we're ensuring that we're making data-driven decisions. And once we've determined what's important to our business and our customers, how can we measure the effectiveness of our decisions? Defining the right KPIs prior to implementing a test is essential to validating the success of its performance. Depending on the test, our success indicators may be very different. And once we've answered these 3 questions, we have the inputs we need to create quality experiments that can really enhance the value we derive for our business. So how do we know what the right business and organizational goals are for our experiments? We've found that by taking a top-down approach, using our experimentation pyramid, we can uncover the right goals to optimize. Starting at the top of our pyramid, we have our company metric, the overarching goal that our business is striving to improve. From there, we get more specific into our business unit goal. Each business area may take a very different approach to solving for the company metric. Then we can think about our optimization goals. This is where we really develop more focused targets. These are what we'll be driving towards in our experiments, and our digital Sitecore goals should really align here to our optimization goals. And then we can think about our unique experiment goals. These are ways that we may segment our experiments into different categories. And then we can think about the actual experiments themselves. But by working top down, we're really ensuring that each of our experiments have a value and a purpose. A framework to align each experiment to our testing pyramid is our goal map. Each tier maps to a level of the pyramid. We use goal maps across all of our business units to ensure that our experiment ideas are really driving towards those top-level insights. We work closely with program stakeholders to really understand what are the goals of their program and how can personalization or experimentation really help drive towards those goals. And once we have a suite of experimentation ideas documented, then we can start to think about the priority. With only so much time and resources, we have to be thoughtful about creating our roadmap, prioritizing first where we might find some quick wins, but also thinking about areas where we might have high effort and high reward. This is where we can think about how each of those experiments fits into our short-term and long-term experimentation roadmap. Increasing your testing velocity by prioritizing and planning will really help you achieve more value from those experiments. And to uncover what types of experiments to run, we found that it's best practice to look for high traffic areas to implement the test. Thinking about areas that you will receive a lot of visitors to your site, a large sample size will really allow for more significant statistical confidence. We also want areas of low conversion. We want to be able to see the impact of our experiment. If it's an area where we already see high click rates, then applying a test may not allow us to see that key distinction. And then finding bottlenecks in our journey will really allow for more insightful experimental data. And lastly, one of the most challenging aspects of experimentation can be thinking of valuable tests to run. One technique we've used on the Microsoft OCP team is design thinking. It's a really strong tool to help encourage ideation. Be sure to bring in different colleagues from all areas of the business to really open up the circle to diverse collaboration. And now that we understand how to make our experiments drive towards business value, Amy's going to walk you through how we can take it from goals into executable.
So let's build upon this business framework and talk through the basic elements of running a test. You need to plan the who, what, where, when, and why to really create an impactful test. Who are you going to target for the test experience? Make sure you segment your audience and personalize your tests. There isn't just one person going to your site, so don't treat them all the same. What content are you going to change, and how will you measure the impact? Make sure the content changes are meaningful and it's easy to measure the effect of those changes. Where are you going to make the change in the user experience? Think about placement on the page or even testing across different channels. But don't waste time testing pages with little traffic or experiences that really don't impact your business. Make sure you create a roadmap when you run your tests, and make sure you have enough time to run each test to reach a confident result. If you're running too many tests with too many variables, you may run into conflicting results or inconclusive data. The why is very important and where you should spend a lot of your time. This is where you can pull together all the who, what, where, and when, and really build a hypothesis to take that educated guess and understand what will improve those problem areas. You combine this all together in that hypothesis, and then you test this new experience and see which one really wins over your customers. Let's go into this hypothesis a little bit more. It's really just a simple if-then statement that embodies your entire test. And it's broken out into 4 parts: the variable, the change, the result, and the rationale. First, you want to define the variable and the change together to outline the specific component and the variations of each variable being tested. You want to include that predicted result, and then based on the research, note the rationale why you think this hypothesis will be true. We have an example here of one that we used when we ran a test. If we drive partners to the program landing page instead of direct to the form, then we expect to see an increase in form conversions due to the partners having more context to be more inclined to use the program or service as a result. We ultimately rejected this hypothesis in the end because this chain resulted in a 55% reduction in the form conversions with a 99% statistical confidence. By testing this, we were able to avoid a big oopsie and learn from what the visitors actually wanted, while mitigating any negative impacts on both the user experience and the business. And what we have here, finally, is how we can bring all of this together. We created this template, which gives you a place to put all your testing inputs into this one document. There's a few sections that I want to call out. So we have the business and optimization goals that we aligned on earlier at the top. We have the all-powerful hypothesis and the defined test objectives and those testing KPIs. We also outline what to do next. So win or lose, make sure that you have a plan, like perhaps running a subsequent test. And to help orient others, we also supply an image of what the default and what the test variant is. Last, down at the bottom, we have room to call out some more operational details that go into configuring the test in Sitecore. Making sure you stay organized will really help when implementing the test, as well as capturing the results at the end. And last, we found it helpful to aggregate all this data into one spreadsheet that helps capture all your past, your present, and your future tests. Now we have all your testing inputs. Let's go ahead and create a test. You don't have to go big. All you need is a few simple things to actually create a test in Sitecore. You need to have your content published, and you need to have some way to measure this, like triggering a Sitecore goal. With those 2 pieces sorted out, you can easily set this up. Sitecore also provides excellent documentation on how to configure this within the platform, and we'll go ahead and drop a link in the chat. But once you have enabled this test in Sitecore, it also helps you calculate everything that you know to see if it was successful or not. Because you set up this simple framework in the beginning, and you have your content and your goals configured, all you have to do is now look in the system and make sure that you have a confident result. So the confident metric shows how statistically confident your results are. Typically, the more traffic you have to the experience, the larger the sample size of the test. And that results in a higher confidence that the conversion of each variant is not just due to chance. So if your confidence level is below 90%, it's probably a good idea to run it a little bit longer. The next thing you do is look at the goal conversions and see which version had the most conversions. It's easy to see that within the system, as well as look at which had the greatest value. Once the test reaches a high enough confidence level, typically 95% or above, go ahead and document those results, capturing what happened with the default experience and the new variation. And then consider those goals, the bounce rate, the trailing engagement value if you have that set up. And hopefully all of these metrics are in alignment, which you can see a clear winner based on what your visitors chose. And so then accept or reject your hypothesis and proceed with those next steps. Document these results and evangelize all of these insights captured widely across your organization and grow your practice. Once you become comfortable with testing, you can take your experience optimization to the next level. To do this, you really need to set up your engagement value scale so you can track visitors' goal conversions and their accumulated engagement value as they navigate the site. There are simple ways to set up this engagement value scale, but we're not going to run through it today. If you need some help with this, please reach out to us or perhaps to attend another session that's happening. But once you have this set up, you have access to a host of other metrics like the trailing engagement value. The trailing value is an accumulation after a user has triggered a specific testing experience. So for example, here we have visitor A who has a higher trailing engagement value than version B down below. If testing content variations early in the customer journey, the trailing value can be a powerful metric to track visitors' overall site engagement. And now Leah is going to take you through another case study on how you can take your testing even further.
Similar to our middle school science projects where we use potatoes to create electricity, we can also use our creative thinking to determine how we might develop our own unique solution if it doesn't currently exist. With almost every page on the Microsoft Partner Network site personalized, we were creating so much content to be directed towards our partners. So we really needed a creative solution to join together personalization and component level A/B testing. We collaborated closely with engineering and was able to output a custom blade, allowing only those that fit into the personalization criteria to be entered into the A/B test. We can now gather more targeted insights for very specific audience segments. And because of this optimization, we've been able to understand what layout might generate more form conversions for our mobile audience versus our desktop audience, or what value prop generates more interest for prospective partners. We really encourage you to think outside the box to whatever that missing link might be that's preventing you from going just a bit further. And just as we learn from tests themselves, we can also learn from the process. Creating a repeatable process will allow you to scale your practice. Since developing our framework, we've been able to increase our A/B test execution by 275% this last quarter. Our experimentation process really begins at ideation, aligning goals and brainstorming new ideas. We've created this framework to help us track how an idea moves from incubation all the way to concluding and sharing results. Continually refining this process and involving other collaborators will allow you to harness a Sitecore capability and really transform it into an experimentation practice. Experimentation is a learning process. It will evolve and transform as we continue to grow our practice and our learnings. To get started, you just need to focus on 6 key takeaways. Make it valuable. Ensure your experiments align with how you define success for your organization and business units. Define and measure. Create a strong hypothesis, determine valuable KPIs, and measure it all. Set up and run. Configure and execute your experiment in Sitecore. Share your results. Evaluate your data, draw conclusions, document insights, and share with the larger team and stakeholders. Take it to the next level. Think outside the box. What experiments or capabilities could really expand your practice or drive new insights? And then finally, make it repeatable. Formulate your experimentation process. Involve other teams and promote your practice. We encourage you to bring experimentation to every conversation you go to, always thinking of ways that you can optimize your users' experiments. We are never done learning, so we are never done testing. Even if your first experiment is spilling milk and seeing what happens, you'll be surprised just how much you take away as learnings. The important part is to just get started. To help, we've shared some key resources in this deck that will enable the implementation or progression of testing at your company. Take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. To learn more about Avanade and what we do, please check out our partnership page on our website. We'd love to hear about your experimentation, successes, or challenges, so please connect with us. We really appreciated this chance to share our experience and insights. We will now have a live Q&A where we're happy to answer any questions.
That's us. We're here. Live Q&A. I am your moderator, Jason St. Cyr, and with me are the illustrious speakers we just had, both Andy and Leah. Do you want to do a quick introduction? Or have we covered that?
Sure. I think we covered it a little bit, but my name is Andy, digital strategist at Avanade. I've been working in Sitecore for a little over 4 years now, I guess.
Yeah, and hi everyone. My name is Leah Feldman. I'm a MarTech strategist at Avanade also, and really been diving into the Sitecore platform for the last 3 or so years now as well.
Awesome. So we're going to, for the next 10 minutes, try to cover as many questions as we can. So make sure that if you're over there in that Slido app, that you're dropping your questions in and getting them to us. We'll get to as many as we can in the next 10 minutes. The first one up that we have, the inaugural question: how many people resources does a typical testing practice need to be successful with maybe one simple website? So we're looking at, like, how much do we have to plan for here for our team?
I'll take a stab at this one. I think, as we kind of covered, in the presentation, it's easy just to kind of start small, and to do that, you really just need to be able to configure the tests. So set it up, maybe start with a page that's most visited, and look at what your customers are trying to achieve, and create an A version, a B version, have one way to to measure the success of both of those, and you could probably do that with as little as however many people it takes to build the content, configure the content in Sitecore and make sure that you track it. So if you're really well versed in the platform, it could really just be one person.
So you really have to look at your situation and say, do I have someone that already knows how to do this? And then balance whether or not you want to add someone to learn it or bring in somebody else who already knows it onto your team as like an add-on. That might be a more efficient way, right? Yeah.
And whether you break out the process, right? Whether you have one person do it all, or you can, make little steps along the way as well.
Yeah, we always talk about continuous improvement, right? And this is a perfect way to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, during the presentation, you spoke about some resources that would be really helpful to people. And some of the questions that we're getting in here right now are things like, can you share those URLs, or where do I find these resources? Now, is that something that everybody can get a hold of right now?
Yeah, a lot of it's available on the Sitecore documentation site.
So if you do searching for, say, something like preview, content test, something like that should pop up. And I think it's in the presentation URL, which I believe is going to be available for download as well as a resource for this session.
Right. Yeah, we've made our deck available with some links within it.
Nice. Now, the next question we have, again on the testing piece, is, do you find that most of the A/B tests are at a component or rendering level, or do you do any that are at the page or layout level?
Yeah, I can take this one. So I would say a lot of the tests that we tend to start with are at the component level, because especially with that, in that instance, you're really ensuring that you're only testing one variable, right? You have a specific component and you can test a specific variation to that component, whether that's color or copy or CTA, whatever you're changing there, you're kind of ensuring that you're only really changing one variable. We've also done page tests where we've completely revamped the entire page and have tested that. But in that instance, we're really doing a multivariate test because we're changing a lot of things on that page, and then we're seeing, how those results are distinguished and different. And so I'd say from a starting perspective, it's a lot easier to do more of the component level because you can really understand your results better and understand the impact. But you can definitely execute both. It totally depends on the type of content that you're publishing and sharing.
Excellent. So if we were to want to have a low traffic site, and we're in that same scenario, you're trying to figure out, okay, I want to get realistic information on those A/B tests. We're trying to keep it simple. We're not making it too complex. Would you see that there's like a minimal amount of traffic before you're going to be able to have a reasonable answer on that?
No,
Yeah, I'd say,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of, traffic, definitely going to need a bit of traffic to reach a statistical significance. And that's just making sure you have enough people to see the different experiences before, you're able to reach that significant result.
Mm-hmm. And something we found on those lines as well is that, if you're making a bolder change, then that statistical significance might be, that confidence might gather sooner because the results are going to be so dramatically different, even with perhaps a lower audience, that you can really kind of see those results more quickly. So it also depends on kind of, what changes you're making, how bold those changes are, and then also at least having some audience to make those results impactful and not due to, random chance.
And I think related to that, when you're talking about, the changes that you would make, this might speak to some of the recommendations you might have about if you've got new pages or a new section of a website. Maybe it doesn't have a lot of traffic yet, so it's not a new website. You're not starting your content testing, but you want to try out something on a new area of the site. Maybe people don't know about it as well. So are there any recommendations? How would you approach going and testing that when there's not going to be as much traffic? Do we go with the bold change? Is that the approach we should take?
Or figure out how to direct more traffic there as well. Think about like referring and how we can bring more audience so that we can get strong results and make those tests really impactful and confident.
That's a good idea.
And then also looking at, if all of your metrics are in alignment, so, say the specific CTA that you're driving to is higher, your bounce rate is lower, maybe your engagement value is also higher, but you haven't had a lot of reach to that page. If all of your metrics are in alignment, that kind of gives you an indication that you're doing something that's working.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Looking at all of the results and not just maybe a specific CTA conversion, but how do all of the results measure together? And do those all, confirm the same hypothesis, or are they all kind of pointing in different directions?
Now, the next question is switching gears a little bit away from A/B testing, but still in the same world, but around engagement values. So what happens if you start changing those or you're adding them during the test? Now, is that going to impact the results of your test? I think the answer is yes, but like what kind of changes might we see?
Right. So I think, when you start a test, you need to have a defined metric that you're looking at. So if that changes as the test is going, that's going to definitely have an impact on your test. But if you're talking about engagement value throughout your site and you're updating that as you go, I think just as engagement value itself is relative to all the other points that you're setting for goals, you need to make sure that it is relative within the test as well. So if you're making changes to it within the test, it's again relative to what the other engagement values are that you already have set up.
Yeah, and just adding on there, I think it totally goes back to our presentation, which was really emphasizing taking the time to set up your test appropriately and making sure that you have those goals and that engagement value set so that your results can be as, as strong as possible, and taking the time to make sure that that engagement value really represents your business value and how important that goal is to your business. And so taking the time to really set that up and using the templates that we're providing is really going to help create a more confident test as well.
That is awesome. And I am sorry, but we seem to be at time and we have a whole bunch more questions to get to. So how are these people going to get help now that we're out of time? Can they reach you? Is there a way? What's the way?
Yeah, absolutely. We shared our contact information in the deck, which I believe is a downloadable resource. So we have our emails and our LinkedIn, so everyone can feel free to reach out to us.
Yep.
Awesome.
And you can also find Avanade within the symposium. I think we're one of the sponsors as well. So you can find our room there as well.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much for being part of Symposium this year. Look forward to chatting with you over the rest of the event, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
See y'all.